Welcome to Design Mind Episode 2 for our detached garage. This is Clayton, Vance, your host, and what we're going to be looking at this episode is all the stuff that goes underground. All of your footings and foundations, your slabs, your radiant floor, your electrical, gas, plumbing, and all of those types of things, and all the issues that you're going to be running into as you move along in your own projects. And hopefully we can clarify some things and illuminate your understanding of why we're going to make certain decisions as we go along and encounter whatever it is we're going to encounter. Since the last time you saw, we've done a whole bunch of stuff. So we've backfilled, we've got some foam in for our radiant flooring system. We're going to be doing what's called a monopore for both of these slabs. So the flooring and the footing are going to be in a single pour, which means that we need to bend our rebar and put our footings and stuff into this pour and put down the wire mesh and the radiant tubing, which is what all this orange stuff is going around for our radiant floor. And we've put in all the gravel, the backfill, and the yard, flattened out the yard so we get our rough grade done. And wow, that's been a lot of work. So some of the issues that we've run into and things that you need to be aware of when you're going through this. The thing that set the height of the floor in here was not my drawings. It was the grade that was finally eventually calculated by the plumber and the final drain, the furthest away drain. And based on that, then we were able to adjust things as necessary. And that's why, you know, drawings will never be perfect 100% of the time because there's always field adjustments that happen. And that's why you need to keep your architect or designer involved through the entire building process to help adjust and make these decisions as you go along. Because every single thing that adjusts and shifts and changes will affect that many more things. And so every single adjustment and height difference and wall alignment, everything that shifts will affect one more thing down the line. And that's why you really ought to keep your architect involved through the entire process. So if we look down here, we've got two different heights of foundation wall, or two different depths. We're going to be putting, I went and checked it out and approved the stone. The stone is in town, and we're going to be putting that up shortly before we get all of this finalized. And so to finish out these foundation walls, we're going to have 2 inches of granite as a water table that will finish off with this. And you can see this grade line down here, which is finished grade, so that way none of it will be exposed. And that is how we're going to get a really nice, accurate water table on this structure. So it should look pretty historically accurate, and it will act really as it's granite, pretty dang waterproof and incredibly stiff. So we won't have water penetration issues through this whole side. Coming down this is a sloped paved ramp that will have pavers, and that'll be nice. So one of the other issues that we've talked about before on other parts of the program that just gets messed up over and over and over and over again with every single design is the column patio relationship, and as it relates to what would be the entablature. Watch our other videos to understand what the entablature is in terms of a classical ordering system and classical and traditional architecture, and how all those relate to each other. So it is important, absolutely critical, that you get these piers in the right spot. These are just standard CMU block piers, and this is a base, as you can see, for a classical column which will sit right on the pier. And this column is actually designed, or this base is designed to fit right on top of this thing, nice and snug. And so it's in a perfect arrangement, but when you're considering all the backfill and everything, you have to consider the heights and the dimensions and the depths and the patterns of whatever paving system you're going to put on. And here we're going to be using a nice clay paver, which will be going, you know, right up against it, right underneath it. And so we're not done with the, you know, final grading yet, because the final paver height will be right about here. So we have about 1 inch. So when this thing sits down, it'll sit right on top, just like that. Now, the trick that I want to show you is the issue we're going to run into is what we have on the base of this is a 1/4 inch. And what I don't want to do is have grass or others. And I don't want this piece sitting right on the grass. I want the paver to be out 1/4 of an inch from there. So I've got to attach a piece of steel edging to the outside of this piece that offsets at least 1/4 of an inch, so that's in line with this. And those are some of the really important details to get during this process, so you come up with a final result that's just really crisp and clean. And that is all the stuff that you have to be thinking about through the design process. Another reason why you want to keep your architect involved. So in terms of insulation, you know, underfloor insulation for basements and things with radiant tubing and radiant flooring, you know, one of the premise of that is you have your floor, you have your insulation, you have your cold ground, right? And so you're trying to minimize your heat loss going that way. But the strange thing about it, when you think about how they did it in the old days, historically, they would have a fire, you know, big old fireplace that was super thick. When stuff was burned in it, all of this heat energy was stored in that mass, and then it continued to let out the heat throughout the night. Once you isolate a slab only this thick, you've just minimized all of the heat into that area. Whereas if you eliminate all this underslab flooring, or the underslab insulation, then it can embody the whole thing with heat. And so I don't understand why Energy Code does this, and this is the point. I think the Energy Code is a bunch of garbage mostly, and all of us who are really on this energy preservation bandwagon and stuff, I don't think any of us really know what's going on, and that includes me. So that's it for this episode. We've got slabs in, we've got foundation walls in, we've got rough grading in, we've got some basic rough grading in the landscape done. And stay tuned, because there's going to be some really big things happening in the next episode where we begin framing, and that's when the building really starts coming to life. So looking forward to seeing you next time. This is Clayton Vance saying see you later on the next design.